All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. You heard it in Trudy Mason's newscast. Dunkin' Donuts will be coming back to Canada. I know many people have been pining for that. The man responsible for that big move, Peter Mamis from Foodtastic, will join us on the program tomorrow at 11:30. If you want to hear the why and the how on bringing back Dunkin' Donuts, you'll hear it tomorrow again. Peter Mamis, tomorrow, 11:30 on the show. Later this hour, by the way, we will take some time to talk with you, and we'll be opening up our phone lines to talk about the chain that you want to bring back. It's not just Dunkin' that's gone away, right? Red Lobster, there are others. The chains you would like to see make a return or show up for the first time in this province. We'll tackle that at the end of this hour. Now let's turn to this story. As grocery store prices continue to climb, food insecurity reaches record levels across Quebec. Quebec Solidaire is turning to an unconventional idea: government-run grocery stores. I don't know how unconventional it is. We're seeing this idea everywhere. New York City, the mayor there, Mamdani, he wants government-run grocery stores. In Toronto, Olivia Chow, the mayor there, she wants government-run grocery stores. Well, Quebec Solidaire says they want to bring a type of a Costco for local Quebec suppliers to this province. Let's take a look at that idea, whether it's in Quebec or on the national level. Gabriel Giguère joins us, senior policy analyst at the Montreal Economic Institute, the MEI. Gabriel, welcome back to the program.
Good to be back, Elias.
And I should point out nationally, right, you've got Avi Lewis and the NDP promising the same type of thing, government-run grocery stores. What I think I know what your take is. What's your take?
So it's very popular, but it's not good economically. It's pretty clear. So right now we have a couple of political parties such as Quebec Solidaire, such as New Democratic Party, that are basically pushing that idea. But the problem, the fundamental problem, is that public groceries won't answer to the same economic mechanism as the private one. A good example of this is that the private grocers need to be very sharp on the logistic, on the management of the workforce. They need to make sure that they are selling the best product at the lowest price possible, or at least many of them, to make sure that consumers go back there. If the milk, if the meat is not good for consumption, you won't go back to the same groceries. So they have a constant pressure of making profit. Very thin margin, but they have no other option to do profits, because if they don't, they'll be out of business. That's very clear. Now, if you're going with public groceries, what will happen? Well, they don't have that same pressure. So they don't answer to the same economic mechanism, because if they're not able to have good perishable products such as fruits, vegetable, also milk, eggs on the shelves, it's not necessarily a problem, because maybe you won't pay as a consumer, but you will pay as a taxpayer through subsidies.
So I want to get to this difference of opinion that we're seeing, right? Because, there seems to be a difference of opinion on whether or not the grocery stores are actually trying to sell things at the lowest price, if they're gouging consumers or not. There have been plenty of Canadian politicians that have made the grocery store CEOs into boogeymen. So what's your answer to that? Because a lot of people say, well, we need this because the Canadian grocery stores are ripping everyone off.
So there is a couple of things to say here. The first thing is that I get the objective of lowering cost. It's clear, more than 20% of inflation in 4 years. So, and I will get back to it, but there are other elements that could be put forward by the government to reduce the bill. Now, the reality is that there is very, very thin margin, around 3%. And so the reality is that groceries are not having huge margin. How do they do the millions of dollars every year? It's the volume. They are selling a lot. It's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars for every Canadian family. And so it's normal that because we pay for a lot of food, and it's absolutely normal, we cannot do without it. Well, they are going to do profit, but the reality is that it's very thin margin. So thin that when we're looking into the Competition Bureau of Canada, they wrote a report, if I can recall properly, it was in 2024, regarding the state of competition in grocery stores in Canada. And one of the things very interesting that they were saying is that they have huge difficulties to attract international grocers. Why? Because it's pretty simple. They told the Competition Bureau that they might not be able to sell product at a lower price than the Canadian competition. And so in that sense, it's not because the margin were so high, because if it was the case, they would be able to sell lower. So that reality highlights the fact that the state is not well placed to do so. Couple of international examples, very interesting. Kansas City tried it a couple of years ago, the Sunfresh City Market. So the municipal council decided to inject millions of dollars of money. And what did happen? No access to perishable goods, or very difficult access to it. Empty shelves, not a lot of fruit, not a lot of vegetable, difficulties to find milk, insecurity also. And so it ended up with a waste of $29 million. And at the end of the day, they simply rented to a private player that was able to manage it properly.
Why doesn't it work when it's tried? Like what does it come down to? Because boy, everyone wants to try it again and again, but when it's tried, it doesn't work. Why do you think it doesn't work?
Couple of elements. The logistic is very complex. As a groceries, you need to have perishable product. You need to import. It's not easy. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing, and it comes back to mechanic incentive. If you don't need to do profit to stay alive because you can take the money of the taxpayer, you don't answer to the same mechanism. And so by extension, you don't have that constant pressure of doing your best. That's the second thing. Now, you can also have some political element to it. The government can say, look, we are there to lower prices. So maybe the cost is higher, but they will push lower the price. So you might pay just a little bit less as consumer when they are product on the shelves, but you will pay more as a taxpayer. So there's also that reality. And finally, if the government tries to do some political point on that to say, look, we are creating good paying jobs. Maybe you're creating good paying job way more, maybe the salary are higher than the private competition, but the problem is that prices will be higher. So you need to subsidize to lower the price. And I don't call it a success when you need to heavily subsidize. So in that sense, I don't see a good example of success because the state is not as effective as the private market. And I will tell you something else. When we're looking into, I want a public Costco. I can laugh. We need to laugh about this because the reality is that Costco is the 25th biggest company in the world. It's more than $600 billion of valuation. And so the power that they have to pay less for a bulk to when they buy some banana, for example, or every product, they're able to have a way lower price than Quebec groceries could have with 5 or 6 groceries across the province. So let's be real. Let's not think into intention, because intention are good, but the reality is that public groceries won't work. But the government has other elements that it could work on to make sure that it could lower prices for Canadian consumers.
Well, you know that saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Let's hope we don't do some paving here by doing government grocery stores. Gabriel, thanks so much for coming on this morning. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Gabriel Giguère is a senior policy analyst at the Montreal Economic Institute.
I'm Luke Wilson. Join me each week for Film Never Lies. Since retiring from the NFL, I've had a lot on my mind, and now I've got my own show. So if you're tired of lazy takes, if you want honest conversations, join us each week. Film Never Lies, available on all TSN platforms and the iHeartRadio app.